everybody, it's Daniel here, and this is our next Emotional English podcast episode where we learn an English language effortlessly, emotionally, fulfilled with energy, and of course, positively. Welcome, everybody. Today is another day for learning English, and we have the next episode about our podcast and the new section, I would say. I'm starting the reading club, and the book we're going to read today, the book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, right? Paulo Coelho is a very good author, and this is a very interesting book, by the way. Of course, we will use this book with one simple idea, right? And the idea is to learn English, right? We're going to learn not the whole chapter, right? So we are kind of limited in time. But the idea of this section of our podcast is to go step by step, gradually. We'll try to dig deeply and we'll try to understand what this language is about while you're just open the new book. And Alchemist is a very good book to start if you're already an intermediate student. So if you can speak English, if you can read a little bit, if you do have about an intermediate level of your language, it's the best start for you. So The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho in English. So you guys will listen to this reading sections once per month probably. So every month I will read a little section from this book. And we will try to finish it step by step. Maybe I will make more podcast episodes because now we have more sections. We have emotional mini stories. We have practical English stories. We have vocabulary reviews. We have the reading club. We have quotes and other things in English, right? And I want to give you big diversity for your language practice. So while you're listening our podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts on social medias. If you want to comment or if you want to send the message to me, just do it. I'm available on vk.com or on Telegram. You can easily send me the message there. And we start with part number 1 today from The Alchemist of Paulo Coelho. And I haven't been preparing anything, to be honest. So the idea is we are going to do this together. For example, I'm going to read this text for the first time. If I see something new, I will try to explain this word in my own way, right? So I will try to make this text a little bit easier, I would say. We'll try to find synonyms or antonyms to memorize some of these new vocab parts, right? And then we will try to get this all logic together, right? We'll try to connect the whole logic together. I want you not to be so concentrated on words. I want you to be concentrated on the picture of your story, right? So while I'm reading the story, you should imagine what is going on step by step, all right? I will try to read in a very slow pace. So we will try to read very slowly, gradually. And the idea is to imagine and visualize, to feel the language without translating it to your own language. So if you're from Russia, do not translate to Russian. If you're from Ukraine, do not translate to Ukrainian. If you're from Germany, do not translate to German. So the idea is very simple. You just should listen to the story and make the picture out of it without a word, right? So that's the task for today, guys. Just remember, you listen to the story and you're making the picture in your mind. And I'll try to repeat and read again and again to make this picture clearly, right? We will try to make the picture clearly, and I hope it will work for us, for our language evolution. So let's begin. Today we will read about how many? 10 or 7 pages, I guess. Something like this. I will not make a very big text to read because it's kind of boring and it's pretty overwhelming. But we will do a little part, logical part. And next time when we see each other again, I will read the next section, right? And then we will go step by step from part to part. And one day we will finish the book. All right, let's begin. First of all, I want to say a couple of words about the translators. So Paulo Coelho is a Spanish writer, right? So he uses the Spanish language to write. And we have a translator. His name is Alan R. Clark. And this guy translated the book in 1992. And the translation was pretty nice. You know, it's a pretty good translation. It's pretty understandable and simple to read, even for people who are learning their language, English language as a second language, right? So for intermediate students, it's perfect. So let's begin. Part 1. The boy's name was Santiago. Dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his herd at an abandoned church. The roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. Okay, so this is the first little section. The boy's name was Santiago, right? And the dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his herd. So dusk, what is dusk, right? You can ask, what is dusk? The dusk, it's when the sun goes down. You have the dusk, right? We need you have the opposite of dusk is a sunrise, right? And when you see the sunrise, it looks pretty similarly, right? But it's when you see the dusk, it's getting darker, okay? So the dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his herd at an abandoned church. So he arrived to the specific location, and this location called abandoned church. Abandoned means nobody was there for a long, long time, okay? For a long, long time, nobody was there. It was abandoned. People left the church, right? That was an abandoned church. And he arrived not alone. He arrived with his herd. Herd, it's a group. It's a group of sheep, group of sheep. So he was not alone. He was a shepherd boy. Santiago the shepherd arrived to the locations called abandoned church with his herd, and it was at dusk. The dusk was falling. It was getting dark. The roof had fallen in long ago. So why everybody abandoned the church? Because the roof had fallen in long ago, right? Many, many years ago, the roof fallen in, and that was the reason why the church was abandoned, because it was unlivable. It was very hard to live in the church without a roof, right? Because the roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot when the sacristy had once stood. Okay? So the first word here is sycamore. Sycamore, if I'm not mistaken, is the tree. It's the name of the tree. We can double check this for real quick. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check. How to double check your translation. So sycamore, you go to Google and you write down sycamore meaning, and you see that sycamore is a large Eurasian maple with winged fruits native to Central and Southern Europe. It is planted as the fast-growing ornamental, but tends to displace native trees. Yeah, the buttonwood tree, North American word, the buttonwood tree. It's the name of the tree, sycamore. Sycamore in Spanish, probably. It's the Spanish option. So, and that was an enormous sycamore. Just imagine the tree, which looks crazy, right? And that enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. It's very interesting. What is sacristy? We use the same technique. We go to Google and we double check. Probably something was there. It's a room in a church where a priest prepares for a service, right? Imagine the place where people sitting on their benches and listening. No. Forget about that. It's a little priest room, right? Just a priest room, sacristy. Or it's probably sacristy. Let me double check the pronunciation of this. To double check the pronunciation, I use Youglish, and probably you will hear that.
The stolen vestments and utensils of the sacristy.
Sacristy, yeah. You see, sacristy. This little room where the Pope preparing his speech to the audience, right? That's the sacristy. And that was the spot where the sacristy had once stood. Okay. So finally, we have the boy. His name is Santiago. It was very dark, right? And the boy arrived to this abandoned church. Nobody was in the church, right? Because it was abandoned. He arrived with a herd, and the roof had fallen in long ago. And an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot, right? There was a beautiful, enormous, very big, it means, right? Enormous means very big sycamore, very big tree had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood, right? So this little room for the Pope, now on this spot, on this area, we have enormous sycamore, an enormous tree growing. So that is the end of the first paragraph. We just started. But you know what? I like to go through these parts step by step, and we're not going very fast. We're going deeply, okay? That's very important to understand, guys. You can read and you can find so many podcasts where people just read the text. But I want you not just read the text. I want you to feel the text. I want you to have this connection with the language, not with the translation to your own language, but with a picture in your mind. And you kind of taste the language deeper, okay? Because, yeah, you can see, sacristy, what is it? What is it, right? And I already forgot what is the correct pronunciation of this, right? So let me listen it again.
The stolen vestments and utensils of the sacristy.
Sacristy. I want to repeat this several times. Sacristy, 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 because I forgot what that word means, right? So, and I repeat again and again, sacristy. It's a special room for the Pope, right? Where the Pope is preparing his speech to the audience, to people who are believers, right? And on that place, there was a sycamore, this beautiful tree, enormously big tree, enormous sycamore had grown there. And sacristy was there. So see, I remembered this word. It was kind of new for me, or I just forgot about the word. Now I just repeated the pronunciation, and I memorized it this way. I want you to do the same with my podcast. So next paragraph, let's begin. He decided, who is he? The boy. His name was Santiago, right? A shepherd. He decided to spend the night in the church. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. There were no wolves in the region, but once an animal had strayed during the night, and the boy had to spend the entire next day searching for it. Okay, that's the second paragraph. Let's go and read it one more time, but with comments. So the boy decided to spend the night in our abandoned church, right? He saw to it. It means he he saw this good opportunity. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate. So he saw this picture when all his herd, all his sheep entering through the ruined gate, right? It was an abandoned church, right? That's why the gate was ruined, right? Destroyed partly, okay? And then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away. It means, so the flock, it's the same as herd, entered this church, and he used the planks. He laid some planks across this abandoned church, right? So he put the planks across, he blocked the entrance. Why he did that? To prevent the flock or herd from wandering away during the night. So he doesn't want his herd to wander away. Wander away means to walk away, right? He doesn't want that. And that's why he used some planks and he laid some planks across this location. He blocked the entrance. And there were no wolves in the region. It's a fact. There were no wolves. Oh, no wolves. But once an animal had strayed during the night, he had an experience. You see, so to understand that it was an experience with him, you see the had strayed construction. It's a past perfect construction. And he had that experience when once an animal had strayed during the night. So, and he, the boy, had to spend the entire next day searching for it. Okay. And he kind of expressed and explained why he laid some planks across this location, across the entrance, across the ruined gate, because he had that experience. He said the animal had strayed during the night, and the boy himself had to spend the entire next day searching for it. He was missing an animal because the animal had strayed during the night, walked away somewhere, right? Wandered away. That was the problem. Let's read it again. Let's try to understand deeper. He decided to spend the night there in the abandoned church. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. There were no wolves in the region, but once an animal had strayed during the night, and the boy had to spend the entire next day searching for it. Okay, now it's pretty understandable, right? So we have a boy. He was a Santiago. He was a beautiful shepherd with a herd or flock of sheep. And he entered to the ruined gate. He entered to the abandoned church, and the roof had fallen in long time ago. And there was a beautiful tree there, right? And he blocked the entrance because he wanted to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. And he explained us why he did that, because once animal had strayed during the night, yes. And the boy had to spend the entire next day searching for it. And that is the end of the second paragraph. We'll go to the paragraph number 3. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. That's the paragraph number 3. Let's go step by step. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down. You know what is sweeping the floor? To sweep, it's a verb to explain the cleaning process with a broom. You know Harry Potter? He's flying on the broom, right? You imagine Harry Potter, Quidditch, right? And he's using the broom to fly on. You know, all the witches, they uses the broom to fly on, right? And the broom generally used to sweep the floor, to clean the floor with sweep, sweep, swoop, move, right? And he swept the floor, but not with the broom because he didn't have it. He swept the floor with his jacket, and he lay down to the clean spot. So he swept the floor first with his jacket, and then he lay down. He was kind of organizing his place to sleep, okay? Then he using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. So he had just finished reading the book, and he used that book as a pillow. Not a nice one, but he used it. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. Thicker means bigger ones, fatter books, right? You can have thinner book, it's the opposite of thicker, and thicker books, it's bigger books. And because why he would have to start reading thicker books? Because they lasted longer. You would have a chance to read longer because more pages in the book, and it means it's lasted longer. It works better and made more comfortable pillows. In the reason of this thickness, you can use this book as a pillow in a better way. It's kind of higher, right? That's why it's more comfortable pillow. That's the end of the third paragraph. So he swept the floor with his jacket and lay down using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books because they lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. It was still dark when he awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. That's a little paragraph number 4. It was still dark. It was very dark when he awoke, right? He woke up. He awoke, the same. He awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars. Oh, beautiful stars. You know, you can see the moon, the stars, but no sun because it was still dark. And he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. Remember, it was an abandoned church. Something was wrong with the roof because it was fallen in, right? And he could see through the half-destroyed roof. He could see the stars. So he wanted to sleep a little longer. He thought he had had the same dream that night as a week ago, and once again, he had awakened before it ended. So let's read this paragraph number 5 again. I wanted to sleep a little longer, he thought. He thought about it, right? He woke up, he awoke, and then he realized, he got this idea in his mind. I wanted to sleep a little bit longer, man. I wanted to sleep a little bit longer. He wanted to sleep more. He thought about it, but he had had the same dream that night as a week ago. So his dream repeated itself, right? He got another time the same dream. He had had the same dream that night as a week ago. And once again, he had awakened before it ended. Again, you see this construction, had awakened again? It's because it had happened with him before. 1 week ago, he had awakened before it ended. So this time, he awakened before the dream ended. And 1 week ago, he had awakened before the dream ended. All right? Does it make sense? All right. So the boy was sleeping, right? He was sleeping. It was dark. He awoke and he was looking up and he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof, right? Imagine this beautiful picture. And then he wanted to sleep a little longer. He thought about it. I wanted to sleep longer. What's going on? And he had the same dream that night as a week ago. 1 week ago, he had the same dream. And he was awoke again the same time before the dream ended, right? He had awakened before it ended. Oh my goodness. What a beautiful story. And next paragraph number 6, we go. He arose and taking up his crook, began to awaken the sheep that still slept. He had noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir. It was as if some mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep, with whom he had spent the past 2 years, leading them through the countryside in search of food and water. They are so used to me that they know my schedule, he muttered. Thinking about that for a moment, he realized that it could be the other way around, that it was who had become accustomed to their schedule. Okay, that's the end of the paragraph number 6. So, and with the first combination, we see he arose. He arose. What does it mean? He arose. So classically, it's kind of woke up, stood up, right? He arose and taking up his crook, he began to awaken the sheep. He took up his crook, right? What is the crook? It's like a special stick, like a pirates have in the end. If the pirate had or has no arm, so he replaced the arm with a crook. And crooks, kind of very handy. You can use the crook for many purposes to catch your sheep or to do other things. It's like a staff, and you use this staff to take care of your sheep, like a commanding, it's like a device for commanding your flock or herd. So, and he woke up, he stood up, he took his crook, and he started to awaken the sheep that still slept, right? Some sheep were sleeping, and he began to awaken them, like, wake up, sheep, wake up, sheep. And then he had noticed, he got this idea, he got the thought in his mind. He had noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir, right? So they began to stir. In this case, stir is not mixing something in your cup, right? Stir, it means start moving, right? So his animals start moving as well. So probably they awoke, right? They were awoke as well already. And he was thinking about this process. He was like, oh, that's interesting. It's interesting. He noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir, began to move, started to move. They start to be awoke as well. It was as if some mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep. So he kind of felt like it was like a mystery, like a magic, mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep. It's like his life is very connected or interconnected with the sheep life, with the life of his flock or herd, right? And he felt like this, like, oh my goodness, I'm so connected to this thing. And then it was connected to his flock, with whom he had spent the past 2 years. So he spent 2 years of his life with his flock, and that was pretty nice, right? And he was leading them through the countryside in search of food and water. So he was helping them. He was leading them in search of food and water. And he was like muttering something. Muttering, it's another process of things, like blah, 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 blah. When you muttering like blah, 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 saying something very silently, nobody hearing this, you're saying it to yourself, basically. So he was muttering something. They are so used to me that they know my schedule, he muttered. He muttered like this, oh, they are so used to me that they know my schedule. Something like this, right? He was awakening them and he was muttering it, right? Like, oh, yeah, my sheep, my life. So they're awakening with myself. We're super connected. Yeah, that's a mysterious energy bound to my life, and it's bound their life and my life all together. That's so good. So yeah, he thought about it. Thinking about that for a moment, he realized that it could be the other way around, that it was he who had become accustomed to their schedule. What an interesting idea, right? So it's a little bit different. Another thought came up. Thinking about that for a moment, he realized that it could be the other way around, that it was he who had become accustomed to their schedule. It means, first idea was that the sheep accustomed to his schedule. The sheep were together with him. But then he realized that no, maybe it's not the sheep accustomed to my schedule. It's myself who become accustomed to the sheep schedule. All right? They were together and he awoken, right? Or awoke, right? Yeah, he awoke because the sheep awoke. You understand? So that's the logic and connection here. All right? This is the end of the paragraph number 6. And this is the end of our today's episode. We will read this part one more time just to revise all picture in your mind. We discussed it very deeply, guys, right? We discussed it very nicely. And the idea of this reading club is not to read the book very fast. I want you to feel it. I will repeat this one more time. I want you to feel the story like a liquid, like water, which goes to your throat, and you understand that it's very healthy for you. So, and we go in a very healthy way here, very slowly, I guess, but it's a very good thing. So we've got 6 pages from 268 pages. Oh my goodness. But still, the idea is not the amount. The idea is the how deep we are going. Let's read it one more time. Let's revise it, the whole thing. The boy's name was Santiago. Dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his herd at an abandoned church. The roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. He decided to spend the night there. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. There were no wolves in the region, but once an animal had strayed during the night, and the boy had had to spend the entire next day searching for it. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. It was still dark when he awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. I wanted to sleep a little longer, he thought. He had had the same dream that night as a week ago, and once again he had awakened before it ended. He arose, and taking up his crook, began to awaken the sheep that still slept. He had noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir. It was as if some mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep, with whom he had spent the past 2 years, leading them through the countryside in search of food and water. They are so used to me that they know my schedule, he muttered. Thinking about that for a moment, he realized that it could be the other way around, that it was he who had become accustomed to their schedule. And this is the end of our today's podcast. It's about 35 minutes already, guys. I'm thanking you all to be with us here and today for your English practice and your listening and whatever practice you do. If you pronounce with me some things, it's your pronunciation tricks as well. Why not? So my idea is pretty simple with this podcast. Try to learn English effectively, deeply, without big speed, okay? Try to act smartly and deeply to learn English in a cool way, in a more interesting way. Yeah, maybe these are banal words I'm saying, but what you should understand, it's very resultative. Thank you all. I'm hugging you all, guys. If you want to support our podcast, please subscribe and like our podcast. And then just if you do have an extra cash, you can send your cash to my bank account using my phone number. It's +7 903 207 2234. That's all for today, and have an amazing day. Have an amazing time with your English practice. Have a good one, and I see you very soon. Bye-bye.